Greetings, fellow Watford fans. It's time for the Yawns Friday focus on Watford versus Sunderland in the Championship. I'm Omar Moore, and I just want to talk about what to expect tomorrow at Vicarage Road. And it's going to be a game, of course, that Watford must win after what was an absolutely atrocious performance at Blackburn. And Watford, I think, are going to be feeling a lot of pressure, as will their manager, of course, Rob Edwards, who has apologized for the atrocious display the other night and also has said that the players must also take their share of the blame. And I agree, they absolutely should. It's really mostly their fault, as well as the front office for not doing the things it really should be doing a whole lot better to solidify this squad. Now, there's going to be a lot of injuries to talk about here. Now, this is being recorded before we know about the status for sure on tomorrow's game as far as Watford player personnel are concerned. But there are a number of injuries that have hit this Watford squad at this time. Ismail Assar went off injured, and certainly it's a certainty that he may well not start the game tomorrow if he's out completely, because that's a very possible scenario for him. He rolled his ankle, and whether or not he can get back in time to even be on the bench, we'll have to wait and see. And again, this is being recorded prior to knowing about what the status is of players for tomorrow. We also know that Cameron's been out injured. Ken Summer continues to fight against this groin strain that he has. He's playing through it. So, yeoman's work to him for doing that. He was actually quite effective in the game the other night against Blackburn, particularly in the second half. He certainly looked a bit more lively. And then, of course, we have Courtney House. Will he return for the game against Sunderland? Of course, again, this is being recorded before we know for sure about that. We definitely missed Courtney House the other night, and his presence, if he is able to play, will be a certainly significant solidifier to that back three. And we definitely need to have him back. Also, we don't know about Jeremy Ngaki, although it certainly seemed like a hamstring injury for him the other night. Will he be able to be back in time? We'll find out, of course, and we'll know shortly. By the time you probably see this, we'll know whether or not Jeremy Ngaki will be back. I thought he performed quite well considering in the game the other night, but they will all have to perform a whole lot better than they did collectively as a team against the Sunderland side that is a newly promoted side to the championship. And not only that, has already had a managerial change in the first few games because, of course, as you know, Alex Neil went off to Sunderland, went from Sunderland, pardon me, to Stoke to manage them as fellow championship side, while Tony Mowbray came over to Sunderland, and he has certainly injected the Sunderland side with a lot of energy and a lot of team building in their goals. More recently, the game against Reading earlier this midweek, when you saw if you did get to see it, because I got to see some of the highlights of it, the way they carved open Reading at Reading was very impressive indeed, and they will have to continue to perform like that, Sunderland, if they're going to get points off of Watford. And Watford are going to have to be very, very careful with the Sunderland side. The defense will have to be switched on. There will have to be team defending. And Sunderland's style of play is 3-4-1-2. Typically, one of the things for Sunderland is they had their influential striker, Ross Stewart, out now for up to 12 weeks with a serious thigh injury. He might be out for, that's right, 3 whole months. And that's a massive blow for Sunderland. But they do have the likes of Patrick Roberts, who was devastating the other night against Reading, scored some really good goals. And what they do pride themselves on under Tony Mowbray is team football, team play, moving the ball up the pitch, doing all kinds of things in areas of the pitch that will make the defenders uncomfortable. Watford will have to watch out for these reads because Sunderland read the tempo well of these games. Sunderland play with very good tempo. They've got very good technical ability, and they've got players who can hurt you. Watford have to be aware of that from the off. And the key thing for me with Watford is to get off to a good start. That's the same refrain pretty much every game. Watford must avoid conceding the first goal of these games. It is imperative that Watford score first in this game against Sunderland. This has now been 4 consecutive championship games and 5 games overall, including the Carabao Cup loss to MK Dons, that Watford have conceded the first goal in a game. Watford must bring that streak to an end on Saturday against Sunderland. They have to score first against this weird-sided team. Watford have already, of course, had a victory over an area opponent there. Of course, it was the Teesiders of Middlesbrough who came over to Watford and despite scoring first, ended up on the losing side as Vakun Bayo got his first goal as a Watford player in that Vic 100 game that seems like a whole year ago now, as Watford beat Middlesbrough 2-1. And now their close neighbours and rivals, Middlesbrough's that is, come to Vicarage Road. In the Weirsiders, the Black Cats come to Vicarage Road. And Watford will be hoping to finish Sunderland off in the game, which is a must win now for Watford, even in game number 10 here. That's right. Watford need to get this victory against Sunderland. They desperately do. I think that they are going to for three reasons. One, they can't play much worse than they did against Blackburn. Can they? Can they? Well, they did play worse. They played worse at West Brom, but they managed to get a point out of that game. And it was only Daniel Bachmann's skill and ability that kept that game from being a defeat. And the game against Blackburn the other day, well, if it wasn't for him, we could have lost by a 5 or 6-0 scoreline. Watford have to get switched on to this game early. They have to be passionate. They have to be intense. Play with that energy and vigor and passion. Move that ball forward. Play like you're enjoying your football. And that's what I think Watford will do. Watford are going to move the ball quicker tomorrow. Watford, I think, are going to be much more energetic tomorrow. I think Watford will come into this game with an edge tomorrow. And I also think that after the way that the fans let these players know in no uncertain terms at Ewood Park that they were despicable and awful, I think the Watford players will rise to the occasion tomorrow and play a whole lot better, much better than they have really in any game except for the first one, which was against Sheffield United at the Vic back at the beginning, the very start of August. I think Watford will rally tomorrow and score the goals they need to score. I think they'll score at least twice in the game tomorrow. And I do think Watford will score first tomorrow as well. And I do think that you're going to see a whole lot better effort from this team. Now, we don't know what the team's going to look like tomorrow, but I think you can expect a 3-5-2 again from Rob Edwards. It's possible he may try a 4-3-3 because the injuries now are really hurting this team. We don't know for sure at this moment whether Saul's going to be available. We don't know whether Ngakia will be. Seems like Ngakia is likely going to be out. Courtney House, anyone's guess as to whether he will return. And of course, when you've got already injuries to players like Ray Manai and to Tom Cleverley and to Imran Louza, it really shows you how thin this squad is in camera. It just shows you how thin this squad is anyway. And so Watford are going to have to battle here and battle hard. I'd like to see Joe Hungbo come into this game a whole lot earlier. He wasn't used against Blackburn, but I'd like to see someone like him get a start in this game and see what he can do. If Sema, I think, could probably benefit from getting some rest. He's been tireless and he is hurting. I'd say let him get some rest. Let him rest himself. He's got a groin strain. Put Hungbo in on that left side and see what you can do with him and start to get the pace of this game. I think Watford need to play a faster tempo. Where possible, as they have done in some games, slow down the tempo of the other team to bring yourself up into the game. And I think one of the most important things we'll have to do, besides obviously scoring first, is establishing a base for possession. Get enough possession and get it quickly. Become early with your possession. Get accustomed to your possession. Come into the game at an early stage and get a spell of possession from a very early start in this game. That will calm people down. That will calm the fans down, but it will also give confidence to a Watford side who have lacked it lately. And I think that if Watford bring that energy and that positiveness, that forward thinking aspect, and the possession to their game, bring your possession into the game, get comfortable with the ball early from the very early start, establish a possession base in this game. If Watford can do that, I think they're going to have little trouble with the Sunderland side, who I think is, though, very dangerous. The Sunderland side who plays like together like a team, and a Sunderland side who defends well and is capable of keeping clean sheets. So I really would caution Watford. Do not take the Sunderland side lightly. I think that they are capable of giving Watford a lot of trouble tomorrow, but I think that Watford, off a horrible performance against Blackburn, are going to rise to the occasion and get 3 points. This has been the YouOrns Friday Focus.